Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football presented by Vaughn Lane. I'm Blake Monroe, where I'm joined daily by Bobby Burton, and today we have CJ Vogel joining us for Jerry Hamilton. Jerry's out on the road. We're going to talk about where he is here in just a moment. But first, tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get those questions in. We're also 58 days away, as Donald Britt says, from kickoff. So tell us who your favorite number 58 is. We'll also jump to that here in a little bit. And we have Chris Warren, former Texas running back, joining us here in about 10, 12 minutes, somewhere in there. So we're going to talk to him for a little bit this morning as well. But first, guys, let's get into recruiting. Decision day and decision days coming over the next 9 or 10 days.
Yeah, absolutely. Koziak Pala is the first one that's going to go off the board today. Linebacker out of Mady Creek. That is where Jerry Hamilton is at, by the way. He's headed over to the stadium at Mady Creek. I think it's Legacy Stadium there. Koziak Pala announcing at 10 o'clock this morning. We will have live coverage of that. So please join us or be with us here at around 10 o'clock a.m. Koziak Pala deciding between Texas, Penn State, Miami, as well as Baylor and the University of Houston. Several teams making late runs for Okpala. But this should break the Longhorns' dry streak of the last week and a half that NIL has kind of interrupted the momentum of the Longhorns. But then tomorrow we expect more fireworks potentially. Both John Turntine and Felix Ojo, the big offensive lineman out of the Metroplex, are both expected to make decisions tomorrow. As of right now, the Longhorns looking very good for both. Obviously, there can be last-minute changes, but 24 hours in, Turntine, I think, announces at 2 o'clock, 2:15 tomorrow, CJ. That looks pretty good. Caden Finley still expected to go to Notre Dame. Longhorns gave up some fight there, but Notre Dame expected to win out. Next week, as we look forward, a couple of things. Jamarian Carlton on the 10th of July, and I would say Smoke Matthews is a real possibility, the cornerback out of North Carolina as well. A couple other news and notes we have in recruiting. Devon Benjamin leaning to Oregon right now. He's a safety out of California that visited Texas. And then I would also add Texas very much involved with Braden Rouse. We reported this yesterday on the website. Rouse, the linebacker out of Marietta Kell in Georgia, has not set a date yet, but Texas involved with him as well as fellow Georgia linebacker Tyler Atkinson. So a lot of recruiting news and notes, but Koziak Pala expected to go today. We watched his highlight video again yesterday, CJ. What would Texas be getting in Koziak Pala, in your opinion?
Yeah, a hybrid linebacker, a guy with a great ability to get after the quarterback. You see that in his tape at Mady Creek pretty often as they use him off the edge. They use him in the middle of the field. A guy that, look, quite frankly, goes to Penn State and becomes a first-round pick. They've had several of those kind of builds of guys over the last few years. I think that's a really talented prospect, and I think when you value what Anthony Hill does in the middle of the field with what he can do getting after the quarterback, it's invaluable, right? It's something that at the linebacker spot, you either know how to get after the quarterback or you don't. And right now, Koziak Pala, with where he is in his development, a guy with his long arms and his quick first step is something that he uses very, very frequently to his advantage to get behind the line of scrimmage for tackles for loss. That's a very valuable trait and something that I think is right up there at the top of his game when it comes to his overall strengths.
Yeah, I think the underrated aspect of Koziak Pala, people see his tape or watch his film, and they see a guy that is really long and angular and makes a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage, 30 or so tackles for loss over the last 2 years as a sophomore and junior. CJ and Blake, what they don't understand is how big he is. He is 6'2.5".
Yeah.
227. And this is one of those things, he looks like he's 6'1", 195. So the underrated aspect of him is he is not only that quick and plays that well in space, he looks smaller than what he actually is. And that is a good thing because that means a lot of people would say, oh, he's an outside linebacker. He may be a guy that could play inside because he's 227 right now. We were talking to him last week, I guess, or Jerry was. He was at 227 and a half. He said, on the scale that morning. So look, bigger than you expect. And I think it's going to be a guy that should get Texas going in the right direction after, I mean, frankly, a week and a half of recruiting misses or sidesteps. I don't know what the best term is on some of those, but long story short, Texas hopes to get going in the right direction.
Yeah, I had to bring out the rally giraffe, Bobby. Get the weekend started. Look at that.
You must be in your parents' home, CJ.
Yeah, this is not my room, I'll be honest.
Hey, before we get going further, I want to say thank you to our sponsor on Thursday. That sponsor is our friends over at Vaughn Lane. You've got to get from one city to another, and like always, it's a toss-up. Do you deal with airport chaos, hoping your flight's not delayed, or do you brace yourself for hours behind the wheel, battling traffic and burning a day? There's a third option, and it's better in every way. Arrive at a luxury hotel terminal, no TSA lines, no long-term parking lots, just a seamless boarding experience that takes minutes, not hours, and you settle into a plush leather seat, hot towel, pillow, blanket, all at arm's reach. You have an attendant that offers complimentary snacks, beverages, and on select trips, a full meal. If you need to relax, you can lean back and enjoy the ride, or if you want to stay productive, there's high-speed Wi-Fi and power at every seat. So while you're there and unplugging or powering through, the Vaughn Lane team is monitoring traffic in real time using smarter routes and efficient detours to keep your trip smooth and on schedule. Vaughn Lane serves Austin, Dallas, Fort Worth, San Antonio, and the Southeast, Atlanta, Nashville, Memphis. They're going to Knoxville pretty soon as well. Visit vaughnlane.com and use code OTF25. That's OTF25 to save $20 on your first ride. Vaughn Lane, elevated regional bus transportation. Thank you for your sponsorship of On Texas Football.
Hi, guys. Well, NIL obviously has been a very hot topic, especially when it comes to recruiting. And hopefully you guys have seen this. People in the chat maybe can weigh in on it as well. But LSU getting creative.
Yeah.
Here. And I'm going to put this quote up from their deputy athletic director, but they're going to sell patches on their jerseys, which they say will generate multiple millions of dollars a year. LSU identified a partner. They haven't named the name of that partner, but they've mapped out where the patches would go on every jersey, from cross country to football. Most of them would appear on the chest in purple and gold. And their athletic director, Clay Harris, deputy athletic director, says, we don't have this as some crazy NASCAR-like situation, but I'm curious to get y'all's take on this.
I don't like it on its face. The only branding that's been on a Texas jersey forever has been Texas and whatever conference it's in, as well as Nike. Okay. Now, Nike pays for the jerseys, pays for all the gear. That's their business. That's what they do. And the swoosh, frankly, is kind of innocuous, right? It's like not a big deal. When you start putting Raising Cane's on a jersey, it starts looking like European soccer. And no offense, I'm not a fan of that. I think that if you want to put it on the side of a jersey, on a sleeve, on the back, I mean, somewhere else, let's talk about it, but not on the front of the jersey. I will say this. It would be interesting if they're using that money for additional NIL, or if they're using it just to pay for the cap. And I'm here to tell you, I think the teams need to start using it for additional NIL. That's where it's at right now. George, 2009. Is it 2009 or is it August 30th yet? No, it is not. And we cannot wait, my man. PG, 2009. Cannot wait. No. But long story short, I think that's a step too far, a bridge too far for Texas or for any school, really. CJ, what are your thoughts?
I don't like it either. The one thing I do like, and it's one thing that I wish, NBA teams who have it now, you see it in baseball as well. They don't match the sponsor logo to their team colors. And it's just in turn, an ugly advertisement on the shoulder, on the sleeve, above, kind of the chest plate. if you do it, I think LSU's going about it the right way, making sure that it fits the team colors. Again, I don't like it, but that's the best way I've seen an organization, a franchise, a team handle it. So, look, again, it doesn't make it right. And again, I hope Texas doesn't do it because I think it muddies down what is your brand of Texas, what it is about your jerseys that's so special. But that's the one thing that I look at and say, hey, maybe it's not that bad when it's done by LSU like that.
What happened? What happened to the giraffe in the background, CJ?
That was just the appetizer for the show, a little Kickstarter.
I like the giraffe in the background.
It was kind of freaking me out.
Okay, it was looking over your shoulder with the glasses. Blake, what else we have this morning that we want to talk about, bud?
All right, so well, we got Chris coming on any second now, I assume. So one thing I did want to bring up, guys, ESPN, they took every top 25 preseason team, and they actually named a sleeper for that team. CJ, I've already told Bobby who it is, but any guesses on who they named for Texas?
Position-wise, look, you could go for Anthony Hill at linebacker in that group.
As a sleeper?
Oh, as a sleeper.
Yeah, as a sleeper.
Oh, then tight end for sure. I think that's the spot where I'm looking, saying, yeah.
You nailed it. So it was Jack Indries for Texas. And I figure we can talk about that for a moment, what y'all are expecting. What would be a good year for Indries to make an impact like ESPN believes he's going to?
Well, I mean, I would look at two numbers. What did Gunnar Helm have last year? What was he at, 60-plus catches, CJ? Is that right? And what Indries did last year at Cal, which was, I think, 56 catches. If that's I would say, first of all, I think it's actually a good pick by ESPN because it marries someone that's already produced on the college level with Indries at Cal. He was their number one receiver a year ago. And then also it marries a position that Steve Sarkisian thinks is very important in the Texas offense and has proven that time and time again, whether it's Jatavian Sanders or Gunnar Helm. And so I think it's actually a really bright pick or an astute pick by a national writer that kind of comes in and does that from the bottom up. But look, I thought that would be, I think that makes a lot of sense. I will say this. I mean, how much of a sleeper should he be if some people have him currently as a, second team All-American?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the question, but I agree with this sleeper pick. I have no problem with that. CJ, if you couldn't pick Jack Indries, who would you go with?
Oh, that's a good question. A sleeper pick. Look, I don't know if you can necessarily classify him as a sleeper because, look, again, he just had a 500-yard season a year ago. But that wide receiving room with Emmett Mosley in the conversation, I think now that you're seeing really the crux of that core next year is going to be pretty talented. It's just interesting because you come from the West Coast. You don't hear a lot about Jack Indries, who's considered a sleeper despite 1,000 yards in his last two seasons. For a tight end, that's not a sleeper. That's a proven commodity.
Right.
For Emmett Mosley specifically, you have the second most receiving yards for a freshman in Stanford history. That's not a sleeper either. That's a guy that's put up a pretty good freshman campaign. But nationwide and outside of that West Coast, I think these are names that are going to be SEC folks kind of look around saying, oh, where did this guy come from?
Hey, we did the state of the program yesterday, CJ, you, me, and Jerry, and one of the sleepers they actually listed in that page, Christian Clark.
Yep.
Just think he could have an impact on this season, some which way. Just putting that out there. I know everybody's waiting with bated breath to see when CJ Baxter will be back, us included, by the way. But until that time, just remember Christian Clark. I'm going to put it that way. He is in a situation right now that's advantageous to himself. If he can stay healthy, he's got some special. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, guys got to remember. Stark and the entire staff, including Tashard Choice, loved Christian Clark coming out of high school. Loved him because he played running back and linebacker. I mean, he has that kind of mentality, yet he has great feet. I mean, great feet in the hole. So we'll see if he can hold off James Simon, even Jarrett Gibson a little bit, and be a player. But early returns that CJ, myself are hearing, Clark's going to be a player for Texas this year.
All right, guys. Chris Warren, I think, having a couple of technical difficulties, so hopefully he gets those resolved and be with us here in a second. I'm going to read the super chat in the meantime from Merrill Wade. Thank you for your super chat. He says, nephew was Jeff Boyd, number 58, 40 starts over 4 seasons, 1989 to 1992, and he was 4-0 against OU.
He was the center for Peter Gardere, the only quarterback to go 4-0 against the Oklahoma Sooners as well. That's good. I'm thinking one of the Fee-Biggers was number 58 as well. I don't know if it was, I can't remember if it was Ryan or Jeff Fee-Bigger, but yeah, there's been some good 58s, but Jeff Boyd, one of the better ones, multi-year starter for the University of Texas.
All right, well, I think Chris is ready to go here. I'm going to bring him in. Former Texas running back Chris Warren. How are we doing this morning, Chris?
I'm doing great. I actually woke up really, really early. I'm trying to actually get back into some exercise here pretty soon. Get back into a real routine.
Well, hey, let's just start it off. That night against Texas Tech.
What a time, wasn't it?
Yeah. Do you still dream about that every so often when you go to bed at night? Because I think some Texas fans remember it.
Not really. Funnily enough, though, like at that time, I mean, I was just coming off of like a really good high school season, so it kind of felt like routine almost. But I mean, yeah, no, it's one of those things because I don't like to talk about a bunch of things that make me seem more than I am, right? And I didn't do a crazy amount when I was at school, but I mean, that game definitely was a night to remember. I wish we won that game, man. It sucks because like you look back and it's like there's no way we lost the game, but we did. But it's crazy.
Pretty good.
That was a hell of a game, yeah.
Yeah,
Chris,
good.
I did want to ask you about one of your top moments on top of that. You know, in baseball, I know Blake and I we cover baseball to the extent of, you know, your favorite moments might include a walk-off. You had essentially a walk-off in double overtime against Kansas State. Mm-hmm. What is that rush of emotion like when you cross the end zone and, you know, the game's over? You just end it right there.
Well, it's ecstatic. I mean, everybody remembers the game against Notre Dame when Tyrone jumped over the plane, right? And it's just like, I know like football is like one of the few sports where you can't really have hero moments, but when you do have like an overtime touchdown like that, it definitely feels like a hero moment. And then it's like you have all your guys behind you, and you guys get to celebrate what is like just this awesome just rush of emotion. And it's like, oh my God, we finished it, we did it, we're better, yada yada yada. So it's awesome.
I got to ask you a question. I want to ask you, first of all, just for Texas fans, what are you up to nowadays? What's going on in your life? Where are you living? All that stuff. And then I have some questions about you being the son of a great NFL player as well. But where are you at nowadays? What's going on in your life, Chris?
Well, I actually live in Northern Virginia right now, close to the DC area. Yeah. I actually was just in Los Angeles doing audition for voiceover work. That's why I have like this microphone here, and I have a couple of other things set up around like the house in like a studio type environment to try and get into like voiceover and voice acting. I've picked up a couple of hobbies recently that got me into the field. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to doing and trying to actually get out and do. It's one of my passions has always been like film and like animation and things. So it's kind of where I'm at right now. And
what took you up to Northern Virginia?
That's where my dad's side of the family's from. The whole like DMV area. So that's where I'm at right now.
Got it. Yeah. My wife says you have a great voice, by the way. Easy there, Teddy.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. Chris, a question for you as it relates to that. You're the son of a great NFL player, or at least really, really good NFL player. You can debate between great, whatever. My question for you is this. What was that like growing up? what kind of responsibility did it make you feel? What kind of pressure? Anything like that on your part? And what would you tell other kids that are growing up similarly to you? Right? I mean, that happens.
For sure. I wouldn't necessarily say a pressure, but there definitely is, especially if you decide to go into like, if like say, I mean, I'm sure like Ronnie has the same kind of feeling, right? Where there's some kind of like self-inflicted expectation to perform, maybe not to the level of your parent or whatever, but there is some kind of expectation there. And I think the only thing that I could tell anybody is like try to make sure that your expectations come from yourself and what you do. But I mean, those pressures and comparisons and that expectation is going to come, especially if you decide to step into the same field. So it's wishy-washy. It can be good, it can be bad. I've had a lot of teams, especially like in high school, try to use like my dad's like NFL stats as like a reason why I wouldn't be good in high school, which didn't make sense to me because it's high school. But I mean, people trash talk, so it is what it is. But yeah, it's a very unique experience. It's nice. It has its highs and its lows. But like I said, yeah, it's just I think the worst part about it is self-inflicted expectations.
Interesting.
Yeah. Chris, the way that you ended up at Texas, I think, is really unique. And can you give a little bit of a is it a confirmation about the coin flip with Texas and Washington, or what's the real story there?
I mean, the real story is what it was. The thing about it is I truly didn't know where I wanted to go. And both programs were in this revolution, I guess you would say. Not revolution, but turning point, I guess, where they were trying to turn the corner and try and become they were trying to pick themselves up or trying to turn the corner into a better, more prolific team. And that's kind of what I wanted to be a part of, was bringing a team back to prominence, right? And I think that those were the two prime options, Washington and Texas. And I truly didn't know where I wanted to go. So I figured, why no before everybody else, right? So it was just kind of a spur of the moment thing. And I was like, all right, well, I'll figure out when everybody else figures out, and then we can all celebrate together. So that's how it was. That's how that went down.
That's incredible. That's incredible.
Flipped the coin between Washington and Texas. Was it heads, or I mean, did you call? How did you decide which was heads and which was tails?
Yeah, heads was Texas and tails was Washington. Yeah, no, I got a lot of flack all day from all my teammates, and every coach was like, "Hey, man, don't flip a coin on this." And I'm like, "Dude, it's okay. I understand. I know what I'm doing." They're like, "No, you don't. Don't flip a coin." And all my friends were like, "Dude, just commit, bro." And I'm like, "No, listen, I got a system." So
I got a system. Yeah, I got an algorithm, and it's the coin.
Yeah.
The question I had there, as it relates to that, your dad obviously played for the Seahawks, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he played for the Cowboys.
Mm-hmm.
Was that part of the reason you picked those two schools, as well as that familiarity you had with the states in general and their surrounding areas?
Not in particular. I had been to Texas multiple times. My first time going was actually to a Mac Brown camp.
Yeah.
A long time ago. And then I actually visited when I was I in middle school or high school? I think I'm either a middle school or a freshman. And we went to go visit Texas. It was right before Mac Brown left. So I had been to Texas many times, and I was born in Seattle, so that's actually like where a lot of my mom's family is from too. So it wasn't like I was just going there because of any kind of connection with my dad playing up there or anything, but there was family there, so I had people that I could be around to keep me welcome, and I wouldn't be alone. And it was a beautiful visit. I mean, my goodness, if you guys haven't been, I really suggest just going up there and seeing that area. But yeah, it was, everything about it was like mind boggling. It was crazy.
Yeah, the Pacific Northwest Gorge. Hey, Chris, before we let you go, we appreciate you joining us today again. I had a question for you. You keep in touch with many former teammates at this point, and then Blake has a super chat question for you from our audience. You keep in touch with many former teammates?
Not too much. I check in from here and there. Because my freshman year, we had a couple of guys that we really like just stuck together. So like the 7 of us kind of still bounce back and forth from time to time. But I don't truly check, like, I mean, I check in, but I don't like keep up with a bunch of people. That's just, I'm not a huge like social guy. And yeah, I mean, for the most part, I mean, it's just kind of how it is. I'm not very overly social. So,
gotcha. Blake, you had that question?
Yeah, so we actually have a couple of a viewer comment and a viewer question. First one is a super chat from Longhorn Football Edits, and he says, Chris, your performance in that Tech game is something that my son and I still talk about to this day. Thank you for those memories, and hook 'em.
Oh,
and
absolutely, man.
And then we have a question from Ivory Martin. He says, do you remember running for dang near 300 yards against my high school, Mesquite Horn?
Man, we had beef with Mesquite Horn. So actually, my head coach in high school, Rodney Webb, he left Mesquite Horn to come to our school. So they had a lot of hate for us in general for taking their coach. And the first year we played, it was a bloodbath. And then that second year that we played, it was just back and forth. And then that senior year, it was a good game still. But I mean, if you paid attention to us in high school at all, Rockwall was just too good. Our starters weren't playing, like we didn't play like a full game until the playoffs. Basically, it was nuts. But yeah, man, it was tough. Those were some years.
Easy to make a decision as a coach to go coach Chris Warren, by the way.
Oh man, Chris Warren in high school was something.
Running back that if you have issues, you just hand him the ball. That's what a coach looks for.
It was funny because a couple of times I remember when I tore my ACL junior year. I came back senior year, and my coach had told me something about how I needed to like warm up and get like used to being out in the field again. And then like he checked at the end of the game, I had like 22 carries, and he was like, "Well, that's not what I meant, but it is what it is." But yeah, no. High school was something. I wish high school was a little more competitive. I'm a really competitive guy, and it was in the moment, I didn't think it was that big of a deal, but like as I'm older now, I really wish we had like more competitive games, because I really like to just get the best out of everybody, you know.
So you're saying Mesquite Horn was not competitive when you rushed for 300 yards?
They were one of the few teams that were competitive, yes.
And that's how that turned out, was 3 bills.
Yeah, hey man. Someone got jumped over too, so it is what it is.
Someone got jumped. Hey, Chris,
I got one more for you.
Sure.
You got another one?
Real quick.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. Look, I was talking to a couple buddies back down in Austin. We've talked about it with Colin Simmons. You know, he's a big anime guy. I know that you've tweeted about Dragon Ball Z and Naruto in the past. Look, I haven't watched either one, but I was telling my roommates earlier in the week I wanted to start with Dragon Ball Z. Which path should I start first? Where should I start my anime?
That is a domino effect question. It depends on what you like. I recommend not starting with one of the really big ones, because that's going to either get your expectations too high, or it's going to be weird and you're not going to mess with it. So, or it's going to be too long and it's going to be like, oh, I'm not watching all of this. So probably something you could probably start with Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Okay.
I say it is. Granted, it is like the perfect starter, in my opinion. There's not really much weird stuff. There's good action, good story, good characters, and it's a really good time. Short too. Well, not short, but shorter than anything else anyone else is going to recommend.
Well, it works. Thank you.
No problem.
Bobby, you're going to have to Google some of these names.
I must admit, I am not I'm not in tune with the anime world.
I don't blame you. It's turning into a younger and younger people thing now. They're revving up this stuff, and man, it's just. I remember back when I started watching anime, man, it was not. You talked about it in the open. You were exiled, excommunicado. That was it. You can forget talking to that kid. He's weird.
Mm-hmm.
So it was one of those.
Thanks for your time, Chris, and best of luck in your future endeavors. Hope everything's going well for you, and we hope to talk to you again. And hook 'em horns, buddy.
Oh, hook 'em horns, and thank you all for having me. It's been good time thinking about some of the things that have come up in the past and everything. So really appreciate you guys for having me.
Hook 'em, buddy.
Thanks, Chris.
Take care.
Thank you, Chris.
Good young man there. Good young man.
Good stuff for sure.
Yep.
All right. Well, before we move on, fellas, I got to tell everyone about one of our favorite products, Bobby, Ridge Wallet. I got mine right here. And are you still carrying around the same bulky, overstuffed, and, well, let's be honest, crusty leather wallet that your grandfather had? It's time for an upgrade. This is where you need to meet Ridge Wallet, the sleek, minimalist wallet that's changing the game. Ridge wallets are extremely thin, but are secure, and they can hold up to 12 cards plus cash without adding unnecessary bulk. They're made from premium, high-performance materials like carbon fiber, titanium, and stainless steel. Ridge wallets are built to last. In fact, they come with a lifetime warranty, meaning this is the last wallet you're ever going to need to buy. And for a limited amount of time, our listeners are getting 10% off your entire order when you use promo code ONTEXAS. That's 10% off when you use promo code ONTEXAS at ridge.com/ONTEXAS. And with over 50 colors and styles, Ridge Wallet just isn't functional, it's personal. Whether you want sleek black forged carbon fiber, a wallet that features maybe your favorite NFL team, or just one that matches your vibe, they've got you covered. And of course, they're more than just wallets. They have everyday essentials such as key cases, suitcases, rings, all built with the same sleek, durable design. No matter what you pick, Ridge has free shipping, 99-day risk-free trial, and like I said, a lifetime warranty on all products. So head on over to ridge.com/OnTexas. Use promo code OnTexas. And after you purchase, they're going to ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that On Texas Football sent you. Love that Ridge wallet.
All right. Hey, just if you're just now joining us, we're following this news today. Cozy Akpala, linebacker out of Mady Creek down in Houston area, in the Katy area, is announcing his decision a little bit later today. 10 a.m. is the expectation. 6'2", 230-pound linebacker, Texas, Penn State, Miami, Baylor, Houston, among the teams under consideration. The Longhorns have been on him from the outset of his recruitment, essentially. He is the former protege or mentee of Rashad Bobineau, a Longhorn linebacker in the national championship team. That was his defensive coordinator at Mady Creek. Akpala showing a lot of signs of a ready-made linebacker. Good player all around. Expected to break this dry streak of Texas recruiting. We need to talk a little bit about that dry streak, if y'all don't mind right now, as we talk about. A lot of people are asking and have questions. Why is Texas not have the NIL some other teams are doing, or why aren't they stepping up on NIL? Well, Texas, in their opinion, is stepping up on NIL, but I'm here to tell you, when things go to a level, there is now a cap of sorts. Now it's a soft cap, but associated entities can no longer give to NIL in ways that are not considered market value. Okay. Some teams are eschewing that idea and just going ahead and continuing on with old ways, in my opinion. Texas is not. Texas is taking the House settlement seriously. And so they're not going to spend a 10th or a 15th of their roster on recruits. It's just not going to happen, or a single recruit for that matter. And so you have Texas, a couple of these recruitments of late, including 2 yesterday, came down strictly to NIL. If it comes down strictly to NIL, Texas is not going to always win it, because this is it's a system that now has a soft cap that people are operating within. So you can say that's an excuse for Texas, or you can look at it as this is a new world order. For me, and I know for Texas, they look at it, it's a new world order, because say there's a couple of receivers still on the board right now. Well, that receiver or those receivers will count against next year's salary cap. So do you want Ryan Wingo and Emmett Mosley, or do you want new players that may cost more money? It all washes out, but NIL is a very real thing right now that I think people need to make sure they understand. Texas finding guys that fit and that fit needs in a big way for them. That's my opinion, and that's the focus for them as they move forward. Now, if the House settlement changes, or people find loopholes, we'll see what Texas does at that point. But they're not gonna overcommit and write checks their butts can't cash. And there may be some teams that are doing that right now.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting nuggets in there that you mentioned, Bobby, is making sure that you retain your talent for next year.
Retention is huge, CJ.
And it's been a focal point for Texas. But when you look at some of the names next year that Texas could be at threat of losing, or will be going into their sophomore to junior year, not to mention the #1 recruiting class in the country going into their sophomore campaign, I think you'd rather retain a proven All-American than go out there and win an out-of-state 4-star, right? I think that's just how that is in today's current world. You go with the proven guy. You go with the guy that's been in your system. And, look, you're not going to win every recruitment. I understand that. You're going to still be very competitive on the trail. But when you got a roster the way that Texas has currently constructed, and looking ahead to 26, when I've at least already theorized that, hey, this 26 team could be the most talented that we've seen under Sarkisian. It makes sense to kind of look ahead and say, hold on. Getting the #1 class again would be great, but we got to make sure that, getting these #1 guys, but keeping them is the ultimate priority there.
And of course, as we wait on that Oak-Paula decision, guys, we do have a question for the both of you from Joseph Curtis. He says, if we land him, what do you think his strengths are, and what does he need to work on?
Pass coverage I talked to Jerry about this yesterday when I was breaking down the film a little bit. I think that I didn't see enough pass coverage with him to say that he's ready in that way yet. And what I mean by that is all of this film is him going forward, in almost all of it, like 95% of it, because he makes so many plays behind the line of scrimmage. I mean, like I said, 30 or so tackles for loss in 2 years. That's a hell of a lot of plays behind the line of scrimmage. And so I think that that's what he needs to work on. I told this to Jerry, and he projects by most people. Some people even have him as an edge, by the way. He's not an edge. A lot of people have him in the Trey Moore, Brad Spence role, which is more of an outside linebacker. I'm here to tell you, he's 6'2.5", 227 right now. He has the ability to play inside. And he looks like he has the nose for the football and kind of the arms to play inside too. I'm very, very high on this young man because I also think he's very violent, and he doesn't get knocked around by one arm of a offensive tackle. He plays through contact. He sees it. He uses his eyes. I'm a big Koziak-Paula fan.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we have some recruiting questions. I'm going to take this recruiting super chat. Then we got a lot of NIL questions, kind of going back to what y'all were talking about. But first, this one from Alec. Thank you, Alec. He says, "Are we in the running for Lamar Brown at all? Any new news there?"
Right now, Texas is in the running, but I would say they're at the back of the pack. I think it's going to be an LSU A&M decision. As far as any new news, I mean, if you don't mind putting that question back up.
Yep.
The one thing that came out yesterday that we've been tracking, and we started talking about it yesterday, Braden Rouse, the linebacker out of Marietta Kell in Georgia, we thought, and it was conventional wisdom in the recruiting industry, that he was leaning heavily or somewhat heavily to Tennessee. That is no longer the case. Texas could be in the lead there, if not neck and neck for Braden Rouse. Now, he has not made set a timeline for a decision, but we think it will be probably sometime in the next couple of weeks. So that adds somebody back to the board that maybe a lot of Texas fans had not even put up on the board for themselves. So that's probably the biggest news from that perspective. The other one came out on Monday when Felix Ojo, there's Braden Rouse, you can see him, top-ranked linebacker, number 4 in the country, linebacker, top 100 player in the country. The other news is that Felix Ojo moved up his decision date to July 4th. That's the same day, obviously, as John Turntine. If Texas gets Okpala today and then can pull off a double tomorrow with Turntine and Ojo, you're looking at perhaps a really good week for the Longhorns in total. Jerry Hamilton, who's usually on our morning show with us, CJ sitting in for him, has been pretty adamant that Texas needs to have a good week this week. That can start today with Okpala and continue tomorrow. And then we'll see how next week goes, where of those guys up on that list right now, I think Texas feels they're in pretty strong position for Jamarian Carlton, although Baylor is trying to give it a go. And then Smoke Matthews, the cornerback, national top 100 player as well, out of North Carolina, Texas, and South Carolina, the primary competition at that. So we'll see how it goes. And that doesn't include Tyler Atkinson, the linebacker out of Georgia, or Braden Rouse that we just mentioned.
Good stuff. All right, more super chats this morning, fellas. This next one here from Justin Yarbrough, and he says, Pete Nikos had a post saying that there's more fake cash being thrown around now than 4 years ago. As the understanding of the House settlement increases, will that cause in-season recruiting to be more hectic?
So this is very good question, Justin. First of all, this is something that not many people have talked about. On August 1, so 28 days from today, 29? On August 1st, teams can put official offers in writing, financial offers in writing to recruits. Okay. If they do that, you will see what that offer is comprised of. How much of it is from the salary cap and how much of it is from other means that they're going to go after. And what I would say to you as it relates to this is I feel, at least from my standpoint, that will start the process of creating some more transparency so that everybody will understand it a little bit more. Right now, it's a little bit of cloak and dagger. I mean, how is Florida paying $1 million plus for Kendall Graville? I don't know. I mean, that's a question. How about some other players in that same category? I think, in my opinion, there's some funny money going on, or they're saying we are going to try to give you up to this amount as opposed to guaranteeing that amount. There's a couple different ways you can go about it. We'll see how it goes, but some transparency is coming around August 1st when teams can put their offers in writing.
Now, Bobby, we won't ever get to the point like NBA or NFL free agency where it's announced, hey, 4-star down the road just signed a 3-year, $1.2 million deal. Correct? That's not where this is headed.
I think it could handle. I think it go that way. I mean, look, all they would have to do is, they announced their commitments on Twitter and on Instagram. All I would have to do is take a screenshot of that paper and put it out there. I would not say that it's, and I will say this, there's been more transparency this year on NIL than in previous years. So I feel very comfortable about knowing where certain players are at certain amounts, et cetera, compared to previous years. And I think that that's becoming more of the vernacular that you use when you talk about recruiting.
Yeah.
And then we have a super chat from KD35. I am the best. What's the news that dropped yesterday with the new transfer window the NCAA announced, and how does it affect Texas?
It doesn't affect Texas greatly. So it's and there was some immediate confusion on that the NCAA said, oh, well, we're going to have a new transfer window 1 month from like July 7th to August 4th for designated student athletes. Well, immediately people thought, oh, my goodness, we're just going to have a free-for-all for a month. That's not the case. Designated student athletes is a specific term used for players that would be cut out by the new scholarship limit or roster limits. Tech and the schools control who goes on that designated student athlete list. Texas isn't going to put its starting lineup or backup or even too deep on the designated student athlete list. They're just not going to do it. So it effectively, KD35, it's a non-starter. It's going to be used for guys that primarily were walk-ons last year and may exceed the 105 limit that the SEC's put in place. As it relates to football, other sports, I can't speak to exactly how that's working in other sports.
All right, well, before we get to some more questions, we were talking about this a little bit before the show this morning, and CBS guys, they put together a Frankenstein team, if you will, by position group, where they took certain position groups from different teams to create the best super team. And we're going to start here with their offense, and then, of course, we'll look at the defense. But at quarterback, they have the LSU quarterback room. Running back, they have Penn State. Wide receiver, Ohio State, and rightfully so. Tight end room goes to Georgia. Offensive tackle to Utah. And then interior line, Texas A&M.
Obviously, the thing with LSU, if you look at that list, not only they have Nussmeier returning, they have Michael Van Buren, who I think started, 10 games for Mississippi State last year as the primary backup, and he'll be the heir apparent to Nussmeier at LSU unless one of their recruits come in hot and heavy. Running back, I have no problem with the duo at Penn State, Katron Allen and Nick Singleton, both primaries. Jeremiah Smith and the group at Ohio State, I think, are going to be really good. The one that I would say, by the way, everybody's mentioned Brandon Ennis and Carnell Tate. The guy that I'm being told right now that everybody at Texas needs to be aware of for the Texas-Ohio State game is the very first one there, Mylan Graham. He really had a really strong spring for them, and he is cat quick. He gives them a little something different than what they had a year ago against Texas. Tight end, I don't know enough about the guys at Georgia, although Lawson Lucky had a hell of a catch in the third quarter against Texas. I remember that. Offensive tackle, those are 2 first-rounders potentially at Utah. The Aggies have 3 starters returning. Excuse me for not being able to pronounce his last name correctly, but the center actually started, I think, 2 years at Utah before moving to Texas A&M. Reed Adams is on some early first-round mocks for them, as well as Basantes. What that tells me there is if Le'Veon Moss and Reuben Owens are healthy, A&M is going to be a heavy, heavy run team this year, as they should be, because I think their quarterback's okay, but I think he's a better runner than he is a passer.
I agree. I think that would fit their skill set quite a bit, given a return from Moss and Owens as well. Pass protection is something that I thought A&M struggled in a little bit last year. Keeping that core together should help. Now, again, do they have the tackles that, one, stay healthy, and 2, live up to the expectation? That's going to be a big piece of the puzzle as well, because we know that they've gone all in at wide receiver this year. But looking back at this list, I don't know if there's anything positionally that stands out as egregious. I think, obviously, quarterback, running back, wide receiver, I agree with all 3 without any hesitations. Tight end's pretty interesting because, look, I think there are some bigger names across the country that, you look at a For instance, Jack Indries had significantly more yards than the number one Lawson Lucky a year ago. You look at Max Clare, the cat from Purdue that ended up at Ohio State. I think overall that's a higher ceiling player, but what about the room is where this post comes in. That one's up in the air for me at tight end.
If you didn't hear, by the way, as it relates to Texas and tight end, I heard really good things on both Nick Townsend and Emery Winston yesterday or day before yesterday. I mean, some people around that program really like both of those young tight ends. So can you bring that Brian Hartline quote back up? I want to mention this.
Yeah. Let me find. Yeah, from Isaiah Stewart, he says Hartline's got to be a great wide receiver coach, right? That room is insane.
So Isaiah, here's what I would say to you. So Brian Hartline could be a good coach. Is he a great or the greatest of all time wide receiver coach? That room is insane. Let me just explain to you. Jeremiah Smith was the number one player in the country. So how good is he as a coach versus how good is he as a recruit? I'm just going to put that up. Marvin Harrison was not just an okay recruit. Jackson Smith-Jigba was not just an okay recruit. I mean, when you do nothing but recruit 5 stars, you're going to produce some good players. I would not say Carnell Tate is produced to the level of his recruiting ranking. So how good a coach is he actually? He's now the offensive coordinator, by the way, at Ohio State. I don't think he'll call plays, but
no, that's the expectation.
That's the expectation,
and
we'll see after game 1.
Yeah,
that would be my comment. But what I was going to say to y'all in this regard is I think he's probably a really good coach. I really do. I think labeling the GOAT when you're doing nothing but 5 stars on the way in, it's hard to really know how good a coach he is. You know, and that's not his fault, by the way. And I'm not saying he's not a great coach. I just don't know because all he recruits are 5 stars essentially.
Well, let's look at the defensive side of the ball. For a defensive tackle, they have Clemson. For edge, they have Texas. Linebacker, Pitt. Cornerback goes to Notre Dame. And then safety, Alabama.
I agree with the Texas edge room. I'll tell you that much. Jerry and I both have talked about this at length. CJ, look, Simmons, Burke, Moore, Vosick, Umeozulu, Lance Jackson. You can put Justice Terry maybe in that. You could even put Brad Spence in that at times this year, I think. Texas just has numbers at edge that other teams I just don't think have. And they can get after the quarterback. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, plain and simple. I know I brought up Anthony Hill a little bit earlier in the show. Looking at that linebacking room and that team, Pittsburgh, I think that might surprise some folks. But look, Kyle Lewis had just as much of a gripe being excluded from the Butkus Award last year as Anthony Hill. And again, I know that might come as a surprise. It's Pitt football. We know the saying, but point being is that's a heck of a linebacking group for Pitt coming into this season. And Kyle Lewis, again, in that conversation, if I had to pick 3-4 guys to be in that Butkus finalist group, it would be Anthony Hill and Kyle Lewis coming into the year. So I don't have a problem with that being the selection at linebacker one bit.
Let me ask you this. Based on what you saw last year, would you rate Peter Woods the best defensive tackle in the country at Clemson? Because I wouldn't. And I'm good player. Would you rate him? He got moved pretty easily by Texas last year.
Yeah. Well, that whole defensive front for Clemson.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So
yeah,
I don't know that we'll see. We'll see. Notre Dame's defensive secondary is fantastic, by the way. Big believer in their secondary. But anyways,
that's Marcus Freeman's his baby, essentially, coming from a secondary coach, saying kind of the same path as a Saban. I know that he had a lot of secondaries where he oversaw everything, essentially. I think Freeman's going that same path.
All right, guys, before we move on here, Bobby, I'm going to let you take this opportunity to tell everyone about Flat Creek.
Yeah, absolutely. Our friends at Flat Creek have won award after award through the years. 2 weeks ago, they went to San Francisco with their wine Super Texan, and they scored a 98 out of 100. It won the award as best red blend across the United States, not just in Texas, but across the United States. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from town, or minutes from downtown Austin. Their wine is available all across the state of Texas in HEB and Specs, all those places that you can find it. You can also go out to the winery, hang out. They are a great Texas winery, maybe the best there is in the state. They have winemakers dinners all the time. They have all kinds of things you can do out at the winery. They have a tasting room. Eat, drink, and be awesome at Flat Creek Estate. For more info, visit flatcreekestate.com or go to your local HEB or Specs, and they'll have the Super Texan there for you.
Hey, I know we got more super chats and stuff to get to, but I just saw this and I'm glad I did, if I can find what I did with it. Alfio VZ, he put, quick update recruiting news on my son, Jacob. Coach Tim Brewster just offered my son last night. That's a full circle moment for me. Very cool.
So Jacob is committed to Alfio, formerly played at Texas, obviously, as an offensive tackle. He was recruited by Tim Brewster, who recruited the Houston area for Texas back in the day. Vince Young, Selvin Young, just a number of different players across the city. Long story short, Alfio's son is committed to Washington State. Tim Brewster, 3 days ago, I think, took an assistant coach's position at Sacramento State underneath Brennan Marion, the former Texas wide receivers coach. So congratulations to your son, Alfio. Well, good luck to him and whatever he decides on his future.
Yeah.
And good luck to Tim Brewster, who's been on our show before, by the way. So,
all right, a super chat here from Antonio Harris. We were talking about Ohio State's wide receivers a second ago, but Antonio wants to know, why are the Buckeyes getting so up in the rankings? They have no 24-year-old quarterback this year. He says all bets are off. It's an even field now.
Well,
like Texas, they did lose a lot to the drafts, CJ.
Yeah, they did. The one thing that I would say is I don't think they're hurting for talent, right? Julian Sain, a former 5-star guy. You look at, obviously, that wide receiver room. I just made the case for them having one of the top tight ends in the country as well. The big thing for Ohio State, and I know that we talked about it a little bit coming into this year, is, look, Texas has to replace a lot on their offensive line. They had to go out and add a lot for their defensive line as well. Ohio State has to replace an entire offensive line, and a lot of those pieces on their front seven departed after their title run last year. So, look, I know they went out and they added the North Carolina edge. He's a heck of a talent, but are they going to have that level of trench play again in 25? That's the big question for me. I think I could step back there and find success at quarterback given who I'm throwing the football to. But will they have the guys up front that were the difference makers in that game in Dallas last year? That's going to be the big question.
Well, they don't have Jack Sawyer anymore. He made
JTT.
Yeah, or JT talk to Tuamalotoa. I think that look, Ohio State has an immensely talented roster, not unlike Texas. I mean, I just want to put that out there. People that think, oh, well, now that Will Howard's gone, I mean, they have an immensely talented roster. It is going to be, in my opinion, that game will come down to who executes better. It will not be about who has the better roster per se, because both rosters are really, really talented. Okay. I just think it's going to come down to who executes better.
Yeah. The one guy, because I'm seeing I know I just talked about their edge room. Bo Atkinson is the North Carolina transfer. He had about 8 sacks last year at North Carolina. That was a big get for them as they work to replace a Jack Sawyer and a JTT, who I don't need to go into how impactful they were a year ago, but they were good.
Yep, they were very, very good. Caused some disruption up the middle.
All right, our next super chat from the Loin Girder. Thank you for your super chat. What position group is the most underrated at Texas?
So I would ask you this. Do you mean nationally or by us? Right? Like, I don't think nationally Texas gets enough love for their wide receiver group. Like, I think Ryan Wingo, DeAndre Moore are really, really good players. And I think Emmett Mosley is a really, really good player. I mean, there are very few wide receiver groups I would trade for Texas's. Now, Texas is relatively young. They're going to have 2 true sophomores and a junior. But I think the wide receiver room at Texas is a little underrated, personally. And I think that the running back room outside of Trey Wisner right now is a little overrated because people are expecting Cedric Baxter to come back and be what he was previously. So I think there's a little tenuousness there.
Bobby, do you feel like the safety room gets enough love, or love equal to the talent in its room? Because the talk of the town is that Texas front seven, the edge room, the linebackers. I'm looking at that safety room saying, got a second-team All-American. Jelani returns. Derek Williams comes back from injury. I think that ultimately could be – well, it should be in the conversation in my eyes of being one of the most slept-on position rooms at Texas.
No, I don't think so. I don't think it's under or overrated because Michael Taff is rated that highly and gets that kind of, publicity. And I think that let's see how Derek Williams returns, and let's see what Jonah Williams looks like. Let's see if Jordan Johnson-Rebel and Xavier Filsaime have improved. The thing that I go back to at wide receiver, and Sark was talking about the other day, I mean, it's not just that DeAndre Moore was a good receiver and a good teammate last year. He made critical plays at critical moments for Texas. That is a very rare thing. Ryan Wingo ended up starting, 3 college football playoff games, I guess Texas participated in. Is that right? And he made explosive plays, I think, in just about every single one of them. And so I just feel like I think that 6 games into this season, we could be looking at wide receivers as one of the strengths of this team. Yeah. And say, why weren't we thinking this previously? That's all I would add. And I do like Parker Livingstone. I mean, I watched him in spring camp. I think he's a good number 4, really good number 4. So
now Ryan Wingo's not blind too.
Yeah, and Ryan Wingo now he should be, with the LASIK surgery, should be better. But my point is, none of those guys, by the way, on these preseason all SEC teams, not a single one of them made a preseason all SEC team, much less a national list.
We're going to switch gears to recruiting for a moment because Splendid Daddy with Super Chat says, just hold me and tell me recruiting will be okay. CJ?
Well, I'm not going to hold you. But I do think today, tomorrow, moving into the month of July, the skies will open up like the scene in Hole, or I guess you'll see the rain come down like in Holes where the drought's over. They're celebrating some rain. I hope people get that reference because it's one of my favorite scenes of all time. But I'm saying I think the drought will end here soon. I do think Texas in recruiting will be just fine as the season nears and as the cycle continues all the way through. Texas, they're on pace for another top 3, top 5 class.
I would add this in just talking about Cozy Akpala too. I think that he'll announce here in the next 45 minutes. I think that Texas will be up there and should get his commitment. If Texas does, that'll take Texas to 16 pledges. Jerry Hamilton is going to be on site for us, and we will be talking to you guys live from Cozy Akpala's announcement and talking about that. Overall, if you just look at this list right now of guys that are deciding, not only is Akpala deciding today, but Turntine and Ojo are deciding tomorrow. We feel good about Texas' chances on both of those. Caden Finley right now, we believe, is headed to Notre Dame. Bryce Perry Wright likely to go to Texas A&M, but Texas discontinued its pursuit of Bryce Perry Wright after getting the pledge of Richard Wesley. Jalen Lott right now leaning towards Oregon. Lamar Brown, LSU, A&M. Jamarian Carlton, Texas versus Baylor. Smoke Matthews, Texas versus South Carolina. Caden Prothro and Hezzy Kent. Let's see where Texas goes at tight end, given guys that they like both Amari Winston and Nick Townsend from last year. Be interesting to see how heavy NIL-related Texas will actually get involved at the end of those recruitments here in the next week.
All right, some more questions this morning here. And let's see, CJ, not CJ Vogel, but a different CJ, Says, I know it's a long way away, but with Texas being such a young team, can we expect the recruiting to be worse next year? Because a lot of these younger players are going to be coming back.
Look, that's not my burner account, just to be clear, all right? But I think that's a common misconception in recruiting is, look, Texas has stacked really talented classes on top of really talented classes. Last year, obviously, being number one. Does that mean they're going to take a year off from recruiting? No. Could it be more difficult to pitch the depth chart? Could it be more difficult to pitch immediate playing time? Perhaps. But it's not like in Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State has ever had to deal with this, right? They've found ways to win these big recruitments to make sure that the rosters and depth chart has stayed intact. And look, I ultimately don't think Texas will take a step back in recruiting because of what happened last year. I know right now it's maybe a little bit difficult to say that with sincerity, but at the end of the day, Texas will find ways to put the class together that we've seen them stitch together over the last 5 cycles. So I don't think what happened a year ago or the year prior, even with Texas being a younger team, will deter some of those top prospects from the Longhorns. I think other factors outside individually in each recruitment is why a lot of these kids are not ending up at Texas at the moment.
NIL.
In other words, yes.
Bobby, tell everyone about Vaughn Lane one last time before we get to our last question or two.
Yeah, absolutely. When you need to travel between major cities in Texas, you're stuck with 2 flawed options. Fly and roll the dice with airport delays just to spend 45 minutes in the air, or drive and lose 5 hours to traffic, construction, and fatigue, or choose the third way, Vaughn Lane. Arrive at a high-end hotel terminal, no airport chaos, no parking nightmares, no stress. Just walk right onto the bus and you're boarding in minutes. What a seat it is at Vaughn Lane. They have spacious reclining wrapped in leather seats with personal power outlets at every single one, fast Wi-Fi, and onboard attendance as well. While you relax or work, the Vaughn Lane operations team is behind the scenes monitoring real-time traffic and adjusting routes to keep you moving efficiently, getting you to your destination rested and on schedule. Now's the perfect time to plan ahead. Booking is open through September. You can lock in travel for all fall football weekends to Austin, business trips to Dallas, Fort Worth, or a getaway to Houston or San Antonio. Vaughn Lane proudly serves Austin, Dallas, Houston, Fort Worth, and San Antonio. They also have stops in the Woodlands and up in Plano area. Visit vaughnlane.com and use promo code OTF25. That's OTF25 to save $20 off your first ride. Vaughn Lane, elevated regional bus transportation. Thank you for sponsoring on TexasFootball.com.
And as I said, we got time for just another question or two. Let's take this one from Jacob. He says, with such a loaded safety room, such as Taft, McDonald, Williams, Jonah Williams, Hicks, Filth-to-Me, and Jordan Johnson-Rubel, what do we think the safety rotation will look like this season?
Ooh, I think
that
is a great question. I'm ready to see it. The ones that I think you can pencil in for sure are Taft and McDonald. I'm going to say that. I don't think you can pencil in Derek Williams until we see how he runs. Coming back from ACL. We think he'll be fine. I mean, I'm not trying to put anybody out there, but Vaughn Lane all the way to Columbus. Might try to do something to the Georgia game, by the way, since they do go in Atlanta for Vaughn Lane. But what I was going to say to y'all is outside of Taft and McDonald, there's not a guarantee. There's not, in my opinion. So do I think Derek Williams is going to be okay? Yeah. Then after that, you start talking about Jonah Williams, Filth-to-Me, other guys getting in action. After those two, I just don't know what it's going to look like, and that's what we'll find out this for fall camp. It's going to be one of the big ones.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the pecking order ultimately is as my laptop freezes. It's because last year, towards the back half of the year, it was Jordan Johnson-Rubel who saw the field a little bit more than Xavier Filth-to-Me. Does that remain the order in which we see the safeties enter the 25 season? I'm going to be really intrigued at that spot because I think you look at the overall talent in that room and, it's a deep loaded group of guys that Dwayne Aquina will get to work with at Texas. I don't know if he's going to be looking at it like some of those deep safety rooms of years past, but maybe, just maybe, I think in a few years we'll be looking back saying, "Woo, that was a good group."
And our final question of the day, guys, comes from Jet Rodriguez. Jet says, could we see some changes on the offensive line during the season?
Heck yeah. I mean, not even including injuries. Look, they've got good young players right now. Nick Brooks and Nate Kibble are going to push some people. It's possible that Andre Kojo pushes some people. So I think that you could see some stuff. And I also would say you could see some tinkering at center if Cole Hudson is your guy and all of a sudden NATO or DJ Campbell get injured and it pushes Cole out somewhere else. I don't think that will happen. I think they'll keep him at center, but you just never know. It depends on what permutation and what injury happens or what they're looking at. But I definitely think they could look at different areas. I mean, there are 3 guys that got to prove it to Texas this year: Gooseby, NATO, and Brandon Baker. Cole Hudson and DJ Campbell are, for lack of a better term, proven commodities. Texas coaches know what they're getting with them, even though Cole Hudson's moving to center. They don't know for sure because the sample size on Trevor Gooseby was outstanding, by the way, but it was a small sample size. Beyond Hudson and Campbell, those other 3 have to prove it for me and for the coaches, I'm sure.
And I lied. I'm going to do one more real quick from Elijah. Do we see any freshman defensive backs out there this season?
Yeah, I think Jonah Williams is going to see the field, dude.
Yeah.
Cade Phillips, maybe too.
Cade Phillips, I think, is going to be a tough guy to not at least see rotational snaps as well.
Grayson
Littleton. Answer is yes.
The answer is yes. Grayson Littleton. They're high on some guys now back there. So safety, corner, and we'll see.
All right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Coffee and Football presented by Vaughn Lane. I want to thank Vaughn Lane along with Ridge and Flat Creek all for sponsoring today's show. Of course, thank you all for tuning in as well. The questions, the super chats. Big shout out to Chris Warren for joining us. That was a good time. Great to hear some of what he's up to and some of his stories. Bobby, what's later today?
About 30 minutes from now, we're probably going to break in and talk about Cozy Akpala. He should be announcing. We hope that that should be Texas, but we're, in this day and age, you never know. But we think that'll go the Longhorns' way. If it does, we'll have a report for you immediately here at On Texas Football. Also, we have the winning drive with CJ and Coach Shipley, as well as Rod Babers hosting that later today, Football Theory. And then, look, there's some news and notes out there that we're waiting on with recruiting. Where is Texas at with Braden Rouse right now? The linebacker out of Marietta Kell. Will he be making a decision sooner rather than later, as well as John Turntine and Felix Ojo, who announced their decisions tomorrow?
Real quick, the hat's on the table for Cozy Okpala because Jerry Hamilton is out there on the road. Baylor, Miami, Texas, and Penn State. So no Houston on the table. He did take the OV to see Houston, Miami, in fact, on the table there. Have that.
I wish we could bring this up. Can you bring this up real quick, Blake? Bring it up for folks.
The picture?
Yeah. Bring that up for folks just so they see it before we let everybody.
Give me a second here. Give me a second. Okay. Hey, by the way, while I'm doing this, I do want to say tomorrow, of course, is the 4th of July. And I'm sorry for not looking at the screen when addressing everybody. But don't forget that we will be here for Coffee and Football. The only day that we take off when it comes to a holiday is Christmas. So we will have Coffee and Football and other shows for you all tomorrow. We've had a few people ask about that, and I'm getting there.
Do you have it, Blake?
I'm getting there. Give me just a second.
Jerry's live blogging on our site right now from Matey Creek. So
I'm having to send from phone to email, then get it over to the computer. But I promise y'all, I am getting it there. Well, of course, now my computer's freezing. CJ put a curse on me when he said that earlier. Now it's doing it to mine. There we go. We're getting it, fellas. Let me just open it up here. Boy, nothing like doing this live.
You're good. You're good, man.
Here we go.
Bang. Well done, Blake.
There we go. Look at that. They're the Rams, I take it. So there we go. Mady Creek Rams. Texas is well worn, guys. Can you tell? See how bent that rim is? That's my hat. My hat science is that is a very used hat. He's got it bent. He's been wearing it a bunch. That's my hat science on this one. You have any hat science, CJ, for this?
I see a tag on that Miami hat. That might be headed right back to lids.
he's gonna get reimbursed.
Looks like there's one on the Penn State hat as well. So both of those.
All right. Hey, good luck to Cozy, though. In all seriousness, this is a big time for a young man in their lives, and wish him and his family nothing but the best today.
And with all the announcements like Cozy here in just a moment, no better time to hit that like and subscribe button, ring the bell so you're notified anytime we go live, post content, and be sure to head on over to ontexasfootball.com and join us if you haven't already. You can use promo code OTFOG when you sign up. Lock in a full year for just $39.95. That's for new subscribers only. Again, that's promo code OTFOG at ontexasfootball.com. Well, we will be back same time, same place tomorrow. Even though it is 4th of July, like I said, we will be here. So for Bobby Burton and CJ Vogel, I'm Blake Monroe, and we'll see you.